In 2008 het 50-50 'n storie gedoen oor die lot van die baardaasvoël in Suider-Afrika. Sonja Kruger van Kaiser & Wildlife was toe al reeds besig met een van die mees uitgebreide studies ooit oor die drastiese afname in getalle van hierdie besonderse voëls. Die vervaardiger Phillip Lennon het die afgelope 3 jaar Sonja se werk gedokumenteer. Nou, die primêre doelwit van hierdie navorsing was om hierdie pragtige voëls dop te hou en sodoende die oorsaak van uitsterwing vas te stel. Maar om dit te doen, moes Sonja en haar span in sommige van die mooiste, maar ook gevaarlikste plekke op die vasteland werk, die berge van Suider-Afrika.
We've now done a thorough survey of the breeding range of the bearded vulture in southern Africa, and we've found just between 180 and 200 nests. But of those nests, only 60% are active, which have breeding birds in them, which is certainly a decline from the past. And the main reason is, I think the same threats that were facing the population 20 years ago have still not been resolved. We still have poisoning, and there's still more power line collisions, more contact with humans, less food in the environment.
Die baardaasvoël was ook bekend as die lammervanger, omdat mense geglo het dat hierdie voëls lammers vang. Maar hierdie veronderstelling is egter verkeerd, omdat hierdie voëls uitsluitlik op die bene van karkasse voed, hulle nie jag nie en ook nie prooi doodmaak nie. So die naam soos dit vandag bekend staan is in Engels the bearded vulture en in Afrikaans die baardaasvoël.
The drastic decline in the bearded vulture's range and numbers during the past century has resulted in an isolated population that is restricted to the highlands of Lesotho and immediately adjacent areas of the Maloti-Drakensberg Mountains.
Die baardaasvoël skrop nes teen 'n hoogte van plus minus 2500 meter bo seespieël, maar hier in Lesotho is dit glad nie ongewoon om neste naby aan 3000 meter te vind nie. Hierdie neste is hoofsaaklik in die rotsholtes van hierdie pragtige basaltkraanse geleë. Nou, om rekord te hou, moes Sonja klein satellietsenders aan die jong aasvoël sit terwyl hulle nog in die nes is en voordat hulle uiteindelik die nes verlaat. 'n Proses wat senuwees van staal en ongelooflike uithouvermoë vereis.
The nest sites we're going to focus mainly in Lesotho because the escarpment is more forgiving on the Lesotho side than the South African side. We have a Swiss biologist with us, and he's got a lot of experience in fitting satellite transmitters. We use a little harness.
It's only a pelvic harness. One leg goes through this loop, one leg through this loop, and the transmitter lies on the backside of the bearded vulture. So the wings cannot be involved. Wherever it breaks, it drops properly from the bird.
On the 28th of September 2008, Sonja and her team travelled to Lesotho to place a transmitter on a bearded vulture chick still on its nest for the first time in southern Africa. The nest site had been pointed out to Sonja by locals. Getting to the nest would be difficult, and the skills of experienced rock climbers was needed to get the juvenile bird out of its nest.
Well, we'll tie the rope off on the vehicle and then abseil down to the nest, grab the chick and put it in a bag, and then use jumars, 2 metal devices, to come back up the same rope again.
Under the watchful eye of a few locals, Dave abseiled down to the nest. Once there, he had to lasso the chick and pull it towards him to place it in the bag attached to his waist. But things went a bit haywire. From the observation point, it was not clear what was happening, but Dave had a 6-kilogram young bearded vulture on his lap. A few tense minutes later, and the bird was secured.
Gentlemen, the bird is in the bag. I'm coming up.
Excellent, well done, Dave.
So what exactly did happen while dangling 60 meters above the ground?
We made a little noosing device so that I could noose him around the neck firmly enough to just pull him towards me. But of course he came head first, and getting the bag out got him a bit worried, and he lunged, and because I was holding that stick, I was able to pull him into me as he came off. But I ended up then with him dangling, with me dangling him, have the bird in my lap. It was very uncomfortable.
The team needed to work quickly in order to keep the stress on the young bird to a minimum. A specially designed falconry hood is placed over the bird's head to try and calm it down. Before the transmitter is fitted, Sonja measures the bird and takes blood samples in order to sex the bird and get DNA samples for future reference. The bird is then ringed, and finally the transmitter placed on its back. While the chick is still on the nest, one hopes that it receives enough light to keep the batteries charged via a small solar panel, as well as being able to transmit from deep within the pothole nest.
It is fully charged at the moment. It's been charging for 2 days now, so the charge will be enough. It's obviously got a battery as well. We have seen the bird standing on the edge of the nest, so there should be a bit of charging during the day as well. And he generally lies with his face into the hole with the tail sticking out, so that aerial will be sticking out, so we should be all right.
Once Sonja has recorded all her data necessary for her research, the bird is placed back in the bag, and Dave abseils down to the nest. For the first time in southern Africa, Dave's helmet camera records the juvenile, now known as Bird 87, as it emerges from the bag and is returned to the sanctuary of its rocky home. The team then travels south to an area not far from southern Africa's highest peak, Thaba in Tletyana.
Die pragt van hierdie majestueuse berge maak van hierdie omgewing 'n absolute droom vir enige filmmaker. En nou en dan gebeur daar iets wat hierdie prentjie vervolmaak.
At an altitude of over 3,000 meters, young sheep herders had materialized out of the rocky outcrops and serenaded Sonja and her team as they set about retrieving bird number 88 from its nest. The shepherds were mesmerized at the strange going on in their mountain kingdom. During this capture in Lesotho, Sonja had questioned some of the locals regarding their perception of the bearded vulture. It emerged that most thought it was a type of an eagle, and in some instances the bird had been eaten as a meal. With bird number 88 processed, it was returned to its nest. These young birds should fledge within the next week or so. Only then will Sonja be able to track their movements and start gathering information sent back to her via the satellite transmitters.
Sonja het vir die eerste 2 jong aasvoëls met satellietsenders in Lesotho op 15 Junie 2009 name gegee. Aasvoël nommer 87 het die Sesotho naam van Lennon gekry. Nou daar word beweer dat dit slegte geluk is om vir die diere wat jy bestudeer name te gee. Op dieselfde dag het Lennon se satellietsender ophou beweeg.
When I saw the bird's location hadn't moved, you immediately think the worst and something's happened to this bird. But you obviously hope that it's trapped and still alive but just caught in a trap. So the idea is to act as quickly as possible to try and find it. But yeah, as soon as I heard then that the bird was dead, it's devastating news. It's almost like losing a child. But to lose data from one of the birds and to lose the bird itself is really a setback to the research. It looks like our bird was killed by carbofuran. And the likely product in South Africa is Curatar, which is a systemic insecticide nematicide. What I think has happened is that a piece of meat laced with carbofuran was placed out in the veld and the bird fed on that piece of meat or on an animal that had fed on that piece of meat.
More transmitters needed to be fitted. Now Sonja turned her attention to the bearded vulture chicks in the South African side of the Drakensberg. The sheer cliffs of the escarpment meant that access to the nests was that much more difficult.
Soms is Sonja gelukkig om met behulp van 'n helikopter toegang te kry tot neste wat baie hoog teen die kraanse sit.
Cathedral Peak stands at 3,004 meters. The mountain's first recorded climb was in 1917. It is usually a full day's hike to the summit. The chopper flight takes around 15 minutes. On this trip, Sonja has called upon the help of father and son climbing team, Tim and Stephen O'Connor. The team is dropped on a small rock platform at the base of the cliff that the nest is on. Ideally, they should be above the cliff. The terrain at the summit is unsuitable for a chopper to land on. They have an arduous climb ahead of them before they can begin to abseil down to the nest.
There's a far greater distance to descend, and we haven't got that much rope, so that's only constraint. Because even the access up at the top, you need quite a bit of rope just to get to the lip.
The weather in the Drakensberg is notoriously unpredictable. Gusting winds can pluck an aircraft out of the sky, and the chopper heads back to the base of the mountain. Unseasonal November snow in the vicinity was a reminder of just how volatile the weather in the mountains can be. Although viewing the peaks of the Drakensberg from a helicopter is spectacular, there is a concern that joyrides in choppers in the mountains are disturbing the vulture population.
I think yes, if you concentrate the disturbance. So i.e. you're flying and you're going to actually hover next to a nest, or you're going to repeatedly fly in that vicinity. Yes, I think it can be a disturbance. Unfortunately, in any environment, there's going to be a thing of irresponsibility. How do you control it? How do you control people speeding in a game reserve, in a vehicle? It's awareness. teaching people what their effect could be on the environment. And I think once people understand how to interact with the environment, you substantially reduce the risk to the environment.
Back on the mountain, recent rains have made the rocky surface slippery, and the team takes longer than expected to climb up to the top of the cliff. The nest is situated in the middle of this massive basalt wall. The chick is visible on the nest and seems undisturbed at the activity going on around it. The adult birds are more cautious and have settled on the ground at the base of the cliff. It takes well over an hour to reach the top of the cliff, and daylight is slowly creeping away. It does not take Tim a long time to abseil down to the nest, and he is closely followed by Stephen. The adult birds circle above, confused by the activity below. Tim and Steve successfully get the bearded chick into the bag, struggling against the cramped confines of the nest. The capture operation is taking much longer than expected, and the lengthening shadows of the Drakensberg mean that soon the escarpment will become dark and cold. With the 6-kilogram chick secured in the bag around his waist, Tim begins the exhausting climb back to the top of the cliff. Once at the summit, the chick is handed over to the team for processing, and Tim collapses with exhaustion. With daylight fast receding, there is no time to do a thorough examination of the chick. Only the transmitter is fitted. Then the task of returning the chick to its nest begins. It is not long before the young bird is released from the bag.
Okay. Yeah, you go into your little hole. Oh, they're gorgeous, eh?
With the sun rapidly setting, the climbers need to get off the mountain as soon as possible. Steve had to climb back to the top of the cliff to retrieve equipment and is struggling to get started on his ascent. Time is ticking away.
We could be here till 6 o'clock.
Now listen, Stevie, let me show you how you do it. You've got to work one at a time.
Yeah, I was doing that, but that doesn't help.
Dit bly gevaarlik om in die Drakensberg te vlieg en op hierdie spesifieke geleentheid was die naderende skemer en sterk winde beslis 'n resep vir 'n ramp.
Steve had finally got going and was about halfway up the sheer cliff face. The shadows were lengthening at an alarming rate. Tim had made the decision to abseil down due to the wind picking up and the rapidly setting sun. An exhausted Steve reaches the top. Speed is of utmost importance now. The rest of the team needs to get off the slippery mountain and get to the chopper before it is too late and too windy to fly. With the rest of KwaZulu-Natal still bathed in sunshine, the chopper slowly maneuvers to the landing site on the darkened slopes of the mountain. The wind on Cathedral Peak starts to gust and a decision is made to start ferrying people back to base, while the rest of the team is still busy with a treacherous descent. As the small chopper drops over the edge of the mountain, an alarm screams due to the sudden drop in altitude. Slowly the chopper claws its way back to stability and heads to the base of the mountain. It takes 3 tense trips to get everyone back to the security of the helipad, just in time to see the last light disappear behind the escarpment.
Die logistiek om satellietsenders aan die jong aasvoëls te sit terwyl hulle nog in die nes is duur, tydrowend en kan gevaarlik wees. Maar 'n mens is wel verseker dat die sender aan die aasvoël vas is. Nou alhoewel die jong aasvoëls 'n baie belangrike deel van Sonja se navorsing uitmaak, moet sy ook senders aan die volwasse aasvoël sit. Hiervoor word 'n baie meer basiese maar effektiewe metode gebruik deur 'n reeks lisse op die grond op te stel. Met hierdie metode is mens egter nie verseker van resultate nie. Het is duiver dag. Ons moes ongeveer 2:15 opstaan vanoggend. En hier agter my is Sonja en een van die navorsers van Spanje besig om die lisse op die grond op te stel en so probeer om die baardaasvoëls te vang sodat hulle die satellietsenders aan die voëls kan sit. Hulle doen dit elke dag en dit alles moet gebeur voor die son opkom. Maar dit is 'n bietjie vroeg vir my. Sonja, is it really necessary for us to be out so early in the morning?
Well, in this area, the juvenile birds seem to be really keen and hungry and tend to be flying at first light already. So unfortunately, yes.
As ek hier voor my kyk, is hier 8 lyne, en mens kan dit omtrent glad nie sien nie. Hulle gaan nou 'n bietjie vleisie kom sit en hopelik lok tot die baardaasvoël gaan afkom en dan kan hulle op die manier kan hulle die voëls vang en dan hopelik die senders aan hulle sit. Hierdie stukkie hier is die perfekte grootte wat die baardasvol kan insluk en dit is hoekom Sonja besig is om die vleis op te kap in kleiner stukkies wat dit vir hulle dan makliker maak.
In order to catch bearded vultures using this method, a certain dress code is required.
Carmen hier is aangetrek in die nuutste mode. Sonja, why the suit?
We need a person very close to the trap so that as soon as the bird is caught, they can run immediately and grab the bird. And yeah, this suit hopefully hides the person quite adequately, makes it look like a bush. We call it the Yeti suit. It's been very effective. We've had birds landing right in front of us and not knowing what it is.
And how long does she have to sit in this beautiful suit?
If we're really lucky and catch a vulture early, then it won't be long at all, but normally most of the day.
So ek dink die idee hier is om soos die vel te lyk en nie soos 'n voëlverskrikker nie.
Okay, we need to head out.
The sun was slowly starting to burn the early morning low cloud cover away. This particular capture site was in the southern Drakensberg at a private resort. We set up about 500 meters away from the trap. After a few hours, our patience paid off. A juvenile bird flew in low over the trap site. The young bearded had seen the bait, and now we held our breaths to see if it would land. Lady Luck was smiling on us. The bird swooped down and landed inside the baited area.
He's in it now. There he is.
Okay, run.
Unfortunately, it was not to be.
5 ure se wag en ons was so naby. 'n Jong baardaasvol het afgekom na die area toe om te kom kyk wat hy kan smil, maar het ongelukkig die lus ontwyk, so ons het besluit om 'n vars karkas daar te plaas en kyk of ons hulle so kan lok en ons probeer maar weer.
We settled down to wait and see if the bird would return. A herd of stampeding black wildebeest ran past us dangerously close to the trap. The cause of their panic rushed up on us at an alarming speed. A local farmer had decided that today was a good day to do some controlled burning. At least it was controlled, as veld fires here are killers. Then, through the haze of the smoke, an adult bearded flew into view. It circled once, then settled down just outside of the noose trap. We were amazed that the bird had landed at all because of the fire. Now we waited for it to walk into the capture zone. Once again, our hopes were dashed. The only possible explanation for it leaving so suddenly were the veld fires burning all around us. Sonja decided to call it a day, and the team moved on to Golden Gate National Park.
Dis vandag my 4de dag saam met die span om te probeer om 'n baardaasvol te vang. Dit is nou reeds besig om die lisse op die grond op te stel. Maar dit is eintlik my laaste dag en ek sal baie graag dit wil beleef en sien hoe hulle hierdie sender aan die aasvol sit. So ek hoop regtig ek kry die geleentheid.
It is here that we met up with Rickert van der Westhuizen, a member of KwaZulu-Natal Parks, who has been helping Sonja with her research. Then the big wait began once more. A jackal passed within meters of Rickert, who was on Yeti suit duty. Cape vultures flew in for a closer look and perched on the cliffs a short distance from us. But no beardeds were in sight.
7 ure, nog steeds niks. So ons het besluit ons gaan dit nog 2 ure gee en dan is dit.
Unfortunately, that was it. No bearded vultures came even close. We took the opportunity to speak to Rickert and Sonja about the results of the research up until now.
Wat sal jy sê is die grootste uitdaging met hierdie navorsing?
Om hulle gevang te kry is 'n groot probleem, dit is baie moeilik.
Ek het dit self gesien, dit is 'n redelike frustrasie.
Ja, jy spandeer baie tyd in die veld weg van die huis af en jy kan vir dae, jy kan vir 'n hele week lank sit en nie 'n aasvol sien nie. Of jy kan gelukkig wees en ek sommer 'n klompie van in 'n paar dae. En dan 'n groot uitdaging vir die hele projek is om mense se kennis daar buite te verbreek en vir hulle te wys, jy weet, hoe gevaarlik vergiftiging en al daai dinge is en ook om die versameling van aasvolperde en so om dit gestop te kry.
Hoe kan die publiek betrokke raak?
As hulle aasvol sien in sekere areas, veral die gebaarde aasvoëls, jy weet, om vir ons daarvan te laat weet, om te sê waar hulle gesien het, wat die tyd van die dag, op is die datum en so aan. En veral ook as hulle kan uitkyk vir die transmitters wat ons op die aasvoël sit.
As at September 2011, Sonja had 10 transmitters on birds spread right across her research area. One of the main objectives is to see what it is that is killing off the bearded vultures.
Sonja, you've been busy with this project now for 5 years. How many birds that are fitted with these transmitters have you lost during that period, and how were they killed?
We've lost 4 birds. Of those 4, 3 of them were poisoned and 1 flew into a power line. So certainly it seems poisoning by far is the greatest threat to the birds.
What do you believe could or should be done in order to create more awareness of the plight of the bearded vulture?
Certainly we just need to make the entire public in South Africa aware that the species is endangered, and there's several threats to the species that haven't changed over the years. I think people are a lot more aware that these birds don't catch lambs, so there's a lot less shooting of the bird and direct persecution. But certainly things like poisoning, even if it's indirect poisoning, is still really a large threat. And obviously power lines, with more and more lines going up right around the country all the time, it's really concerning for the species.
Sonja se navorsing is deurlopend en van onskatbare waarde tot die bewaring van hierdie merkwaardige voëls. Onderrig is die sleutel tot die oorlewing van die baardaasvoël. Die bedreigde populasie in Suider-Afrika het al die beskerming nodig wat hulle kan kry. Wat kan jy doen om te help?